among the largest in the world. The U.S. Forest Service says, however, an endangered group of the trees has survived. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege, but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
It's 8:06 in Tulsa. Good morning. I'm Zach Bobble with KWGS News. Taking a look at your current conditions. Right now, 66 degrees under mostly sunny skies. The rest of Wednesday, slight chance of afternoon showers, otherwise mostly sunny, a high of 89. Tonight, partly cloudy, low of 67. Coming up, an update on the governor's plan to displace Tulsa's homeless population. And later this hour, the Tulsa County GOP holds a Constitution class taught by a controversial figure. Stay tuned to KWGS for these stories and more.
The Federal Reserve is changing. That's if President Trump gets his way. He's trying to replace Fed Governor Lisa Cook with an economist who's critical of the central bank's independence. How and why is the White House attempting to exact control over the Federal Reserve? And how could shifts at the Fed affect consumers and our economy? That's next time on 1A.
This morning at 9 on Public Radio 89.5.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by Philbrook Museum of Art, presenting the Philbrook Fun Menu. From story time and fish feeding to little garden explorers and nature walks, there's a lively lineup of activities for the whole family. More at philbrook.org.
Public Radio 89.5, KWGS HD1, Tulsa. National Public Radio for Northeastern Oklahoma.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Michelle Martin.
I'm Layla Fadel.
And I'm Steve Inskeep in Chicago. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, is responding to a surge of immigration agents into this city.
They're arresting people outside of courthouses, people who are going there, in fact, to seek legal status if they don't have it already, or to advance their legal status, or they're here permanently but they'd like to become a U.S. citizen. They're literally stopping people who are trying to follow the legal system to do the right thing.
Pritzker is in a duel with President Trump. The president has been threatening to send the National Guard to Chicago, saying he wants a crackdown on crime. But it's hard to do that legally unless the governor asks for it, which he has not. Next, the administration said immigration agents were coming. And throughout Tuesday, the Chicago Sun-Times tracked reports of arrests across the city. Pritzker visited the National Museum of Mexican Art, a way to touch base with the city's Latino community. And then he sat with us in a room filled with drawings and sculptures in bold colors. I asked if he thinks the president has given up on sending troops.
I don't know. Donald Trump doesn't seem to follow the law all that much, or listen to people who would tell him what's legal and what's not. I hope so, though, because it's not legal for him to send military troops into the city of Chicago. He has sent ICE. They've been here before. As you may know, Tom Homan announced early, in fact, weeks before Donald Trump took office, at a Republican fundraiser, that they were targeting Chicago.
This is the president's border czar, of course.
Indeed, and Tom Homan not only said that, but then when Donald Trump took office, actually did that. Except he showed up here with Dr. Phil. And he brought ICE troops with him, ICE agents, but it's clear that they were ineffective, and that frustrated him a lot. So they're coming back and back and back, and now they're attacking the city again with perhaps up to 300 ICE agents. So I'm frustrated by their frustration. All I can say is that they ought to understand that Chicago's a place that's going to protect its people.
Is 300 ICE agents a lot more than you would normally have doing their job
yes.
in and around Chicago?
300 is a much larger force than they brought the last couple of times. But as we know, the vast majority of the people that they detain are not criminals. They're actually just people who live here in Illinois. They may have partially documented a situation, or they're undocumented. Many, by the way, are fully documented. And now, apparently, they're going to be arresting people who simply speak with a Spanish accent.
And you're referring to a Supreme Court ruling without explanation, overturning a lower court and making it easier for ICE to continue searches, at least in Los Angeles. What do you think of that ruling?
That ruling, to me, is a reversal of progress that we've made in this country, where we've stood against and effectuated laws that oppose racial profiling. And now you've got federal ICE agents wearing masks, grabbing people off the street who speak with an accent or might be brown or black, and disappearing them. I did not think that we lived in a country like that, but that is, in fact, what they have been doing and what they now intend to do more of.
Brett Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court Justice, in what's called a concurring opinion, said it is perfectly reasonable to question someone if they're leaving a construction site where people who may be here without legal status might be working, or if they can't speak English, and if they're legitimate or citizens, you let them go.
You think they're questioning them? Because that's not what any of us are seeing in any of the bystander videos that have been made. People are being grabbed, and they're being thrown into vans. And that's different than questioning people. And oh, by the way, I want to ask a question to everybody who's listening and to you. Do you carry with you citizenship papers? How do you prove to somebody that you're a U.S. citizen? Your accent? The color of your skin? That's not the country we live in. You know, you shouldn't have to walk around with papers the way that they did in the early days of Nazi Germany to prove that you belong and that you're not one of them.
The governor, who's Jewish, talked of helping to build a Holocaust museum and said he needed to stand up even at the risk of retribution. He faces critics who also make passionate claims. The administration says it's conducting its crackdown in the name of Katie Abraham, an Illinois woman killed in a drunk driving incident by a man who lacked legal status. Her father, Joe Abraham, appeared in an administration-produced video.
Katie was killed by someone who really could have been vetted and not been in this country, and she would be here with us today.
I read that statement to Governor Pritzker. What is your response to that?
That you're talking about someone who's committed a violent crime. We should be identifying them. We should make sure that they get arrested, that they're held accountable for the crimes that they commit. Not just everybody that happens to be here in this country and doesn't look like you or me.
The president keeps saying he would like you to call him. You said you're not going to call him and ask for the National Guard. But setting that particular request aside, is it worth calling him? Do you have anything to discuss?
I've called him before, Steve. Let me just recount history here. As the pandemic was coming upon us, I called him to ask him for help. I asked for millions of N95 masks. I asked him for thousands of ventilators. They agreed, he agreed, or Peter Navarro on his behalf agreed.
One of his aides, okay.
Yes, that they would deliver those things. They did not. And that is just par for the course with this administration and with this president, most especially. He makes promises, he enters into contracts, and then he breaches those contracts and breaches those agreements. I am always happy to have conversation, but in this moment, when he is breaking the law consistently and we're having to take him to court consistently, me calling him and asking for any kind of help or having a conversation about the help that we would need, which, by the way, should be civilian law enforcement help, which we already utilize, ATF, FBI, DEA. But asking for any kind of help or having that conversation with him will become evidence in a case that I was asking for help and therefore he's going to send in military troops. That's the challenge in this moment. But look, he has been conversing with me by standing up in front of television cameras. I am conversing with him by standing up in front of television cameras.
Okay. We've made a transition there when you talked about ATF and FBI from immigration to street crime. Chicagoans have pointed out that the crime rates are dropping here and that they're much lower statistically than in many other cities. But I did notice that there were 5 homicides over the weekend, including a couple near transit stops. One of those transit stops is not very far from this museum. How would you diagnose the problem, if any?
Well, we've diagnosed it before and we've been dealing with it. In fact, our homicide rate has been cut in half in the last 4 years. And we haven't just diagnosed it, we've also addressed it. We've treated it. How are we treating it? Community violence interruption. We've been doing this. We're the best in the country at it, and you've seen our crime rates dropping at a higher rate than many other cities because of it. We have peacekeepers that are in the toughest neighborhoods, right? The ones with the greatest amount of violence. We've done a lot to address that, and indeed, Chicago isn't even in the top 25 of violent cities.
We're talking here about immigration, also talking about crime. Do you see the president as combining the two issues or ideas?
Clearly, his ends are racist ends, so he is conflating the two because he wants people to think that every person that's here that's not born in the United States is a criminal. That is kind of the veil that he's put over this entire endeavor of deporting people who are immigrants. Yes, somebody who has committed a crime who is undocumented, I think we ought to grab and kick out of the country. That's not, violent criminals should not be allowed to stay if they're undocumented. I've said that many, many times. But the idea that every immigrant is a criminal is ridiculous. We're talking about a very small percentage, indeed a smaller percentage of the immigrant population have committed crimes than of the native-born populations here in the United States. So yes, he's trying to conflate the two to meet his nefarious ends, which are, first to effectuate this kind of cleansing of people from the United States that he doesn't want to have here, and then second to militarize our cities by backing up ICE, sending military troops in.
J.B. Pritzker is governor of Illinois. We spoke at the National Museum of Mexican Art here in Chicago, and when we were done, we went for a walk in the neighborhood. A woman with a stroller immediately recognized him.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Meg.
I'm Meg, JB.
Yes, I know. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
It was a perfect sunny day, though Pritzker said immigrant neighborhoods are less busy than usual.
People are not out at the restaurants. People are not out shopping the way they normally would. There are even kids who are not going to school because their parents can't walk them there and not feel like they're under attack.
Okay, so I have a question about this. We have heard from our reporters about people staying inside, sending someone else to get groceries for them. Can people really sustain that for 3.5 more years, if not longer?
No, but the ICE raids are not a group of 300 people as we see here now, are typically not sustained for long periods of time.
Pritzker says he believes ICE agents came here from Los Angeles and will eventually be deployed somewhere else. As we talked, we were walking past murals on nearby buildings, an explosion of Latin American color. One of the murals across the street from us read, "Fight to stay." We spoke with Pritzker on video, and there is a lot more to this discussion with a governor who's considered a possible presidential contender. Here's one question we posed. What does Pritzker, who's a billionaire, think of the billionaires in the Trump administration? Have a look at the answer. It's at npr.org, on the NPR app, YouTube, and elsewhere. And you can also get a look at that Mexican art museum. This is NPR News.
This is KWGS News at 8:19. I'm Zach Boblet in Tulsa. Oklahoma Highway Patrol confirms no one has been arrested during recent encampment sweeps in Tulsa. Sarah Pfeiffer reports only one person has been connected to services through the governor's Operation Safe.
Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt set up a choice for people in Tulsa who are living in encampments on state property: get services or go to jail. But Oklahoma Highway Patrol spokesperson Lieutenant Mark Salvo says the vast majority are simply vacating the area when asked.
We can't make anybody go with us. Once they leave state property, that's all they're required to do.
Salvo says troopers have cleared at least 30 encampments.
It was never our intent to solve homelessness in Tulsa. We know that is a much bigger mission than what we're going to be able to provide.
He says his troopers' priority is to clear state land and make roadways safer, not mandate where people go afterward. In Oklahoma City, I'm Sierra Pfeiffer.
Governor Stitt's effort to clear homeless encampments in Tulsa could expand statewide. The SAFE initiative already has about a dozen more encampments identified, outside of the 30 they've already cleared, according to OHP. Troopers have displaced hundreds of homeless people. Officials say the goal is to improve safety, though only one person has accepted services so far. Tulsa Mayor Monroe Nichols criticized the operation, saying it was launched without notice and puts added pressure on already overcapacity shelters. Nichols called it a manufactured crisis and warned it could damage the trust built between the city and its homeless population. You're listening to KWGS News on Public Radio 89.5. We're also online at publicradiotulsa.org, where you can sign up for Public Radio Tulsa's newsletters.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Subaru, featuring the 2025 Subaru Outback with standard symmetrical all-wheel drive and up to 9.5 inches of ground clearance. Learn more at Subaru.com/Outback. From the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org. From Avalara, providing businesses with cloud-based tools and managed services for property tax compliance. From filing returns to tracking assessments, learn more at avalara.com/propertytax. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Leila Faldi.
And I'm Michelle Martin. Good morning. Poland says it shot down several Russian attack drones that violated Polish airspace overnight. It's the first time a NATO member has destroyed Russian military assets in the alliance's airspace since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine that began in 2022. Moscow says there's no proof the drones are Russian. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports from Kyiv.
Poland's leaders are calling this, quote, an act of aggression. Residents in Polish regions bordering Ukraine were told to seek shelter. Poland also paused operations at 4 airports, including its main hub in Warsaw. In a televised statement from Warsaw, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said the drones posed an immediate threat.
Mamy do czynienia najprawdopodobniej z prowokacją na dużą skalę.
We are most likely dealing with a large-scale provocation, but we are in touch with our allies, and I'm in constant contact with the Secretary General of NATO to make sure everything is handled effectively. Our allies take the situation very seriously.
Russian drones have crossed into Polish territory before, but never on this scale. The European Union's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, called it the most significant violation of European airspace since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said this incursion was no accident. Ukrainian security analyst Hanna Shelest agrees.
We understand that it is a deliberate policy of checking air defense and the procedures of NATO countries, how they will react to this. Because the weak reaction immediately will encourage them to the continuous action and increase of such activities.
Meanwhile, back in Poland, Tusk told Poles to remain calm.
Nie ma powodu do paniki.
There's no reason to panic. Life will go on as normal. We will update citizens so they have full clarity on what's happening in Polish airspace or on the Polish border.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Poland and other NATO countries have been on alert in case the war expands into their territory. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
Another country where Russia is seeking to extend its sphere of influence is Georgia. Protesters have been out on the streets for more than 300 days. It all began in October, when parliamentary elections were marred by accusations of fraud, voter intimidation, Russian meddling, things election observers witnessed. When the anti-West Georgia Dream Party won a majority, thousands took to the streets. The government has grown increasingly authoritarian in what the European Union has labeled democratic backsliding. That includes ending EU membership talks and passing an allegedly Kremlin-backed foreign agent law. Amid all this, the incumbent president refuses to stand down. Salome Zorabishvili is in Washington, D.C. this week to press Congress for a more focused plan on how to deal with the Georgia Dream-controlled government, including more sanctions. When she sat down with me at NPR Studios, I asked her how Georgia got to this point. Georgia Dream is a party that endorsed you in 2018.
Not only endorsed, introduced in the Constitution the Euro-Atlantic integration.
So they were also facing towards Europe and towards the West.
Completely at the
So
beginning.
what happened? Is there a moment that you can point to, or that you started to see a shift, a democratic backsliding begin?
Well, you can point at different stages, of course, and the question is always, is this something that we didn't see and we could have stopped earlier? Clearly, when the justice reform was stopped was one point in time, in 21, but the real shift, I would say, comes in 2022. It comes with the Ukrainian war, it comes with a siding with Russia, it comes with non-siding with our Western partners for the sanctions, and it comes with very harsh speeches coming from Mr. Ivanishvili himself, the leader of the Georgian Dream, against our Western partners, accusing them of wanting to wage a war from Georgia towards Russia.
How do you see your role in this moment? I mean, you still call yourself the president of Georgia. You don't recognize this election as...
I'm legitimate in the eyes of the people, but I'm there for two very important reasons. One is that I represent the people and their will to continue on the road since the independence, and that was very clearly pro-Western. I represent another very strong will of the Georgian people, which is to see their opposition united.
I mean, that's really one of the criticisms about the opposition, that is that it's fragmented and therefore not effective. So your goal is to change that?
My goal is to every day try to change that. I think that we're making some progress, and it's clearly the will of the people.
Beyond why this is important to, obviously, Georgian people and their futures, why does it matter to the West beyond Georgia's borders?
First of all, Georgia is a place where both the United States first and the European Union have invested massively in constructing an independent state. But moreover, if that engagement was because there was an interest, a strategic interest in this region,